Bueno, para los que nos están viendo por streaming, estamos un poco demorados, vamos a estar arrancando en 2 minutos. Nos vemos en breve. ¿Está bien? Buenos días, Buenos Aires. ¿Cómo están? Qué lindo, qué lindo. Antes de empezar, quiero medir un poco acá la energía de la sala. A ver, levante la mano. ¿Quién es su primer Community Day? Wow. Bienvenidos a todos, este es su lugar. Esperamos que tengan una linda experiencia. Hay quienes vienen por segunda, tercera vez, porque es el tercero. Bueno, ya saben de qué se trata, es bueno tenerlo de vuelta. Y bueno, vamos a arrancar oficialmente. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas a la AWS Community Day Argentina 2024. Estamos muy contentos de tenerlos acá. Es un evento que organizan las comunidades para las comunidades. Acá somos todos voluntarios que donamos nuestro tiempo para transmitir conocimientos y para que ustedes se lleven algo nuevo, algo que puedan aplicar en sus proyectos. Lo primero que quiero hacer es agradecer a todas aquellas personas y organizaciones que hacen que esto sea posible. Nuestros sponsors, los voy a nombrar: AWS, la UADE, Keylen, Cloud GS, Craftech, Escala 24/7, GoCloud, Nueva Comunicación, TeraCloud, Crubit, BGH y Crunchloop. Ellos hacen que esto sea posible. Por otro lado, a los speakers que vinieron de muchas partes del mundo, hay speakers que llegaron hoy a las 6 de la mañana por algunos cambios en los vuelos, así que eso es un trabajo enorme. Acá nadie cobra un peso por hablar. A todos los otros, o sea, este evento está organizado por muchos user groups, ahora Gastón nos va a comentar un poco, pero a los organizadores de los otros user groups también, a los más de 50 voluntarios que están ayudando, a ellos un gran aplauso. Y al equipo de Developer Relations de AWS, que ellos son los que hacen que nosotros se nos ocurra una idea loca. Vamos a hacer un evento para un montón de gente registrada. Bueno, ¿qué necesitan? Y salen corriendo. Están por allá Nelly, Eli, José. Están todos por allá. Así que bueno, yo ya agradecí a todos. Gastón, si querés contar un poco de qué se trata la comunidad, de qué se trata los user groups, te lo dejo.
Salimos buen duplex. Antes que nada, estoy viendo algunos headsets con luces rojas, luces verdes. La línea azul es donde va a salir de traducción. Si no, no sé, escucharán en la radio o algo así, pero la traducción.
Por el rojo salen por dos.
O me escuchan a mí cantando y estamos al horno. ¿Qué son los user groups? Los user groups son grupos de gente que se reúne para compartir conocimiento y networking. Así que yo los invito, en Argentina tenemos en Córdoba, User Group de Patagonia, las AWS Girls y el User Group de Buenos Aires. Van a ver los códigos QR y nos van a ver. Los líderes, por favor, levántense para que los identifiquen. Buscan a su líder, buscan el QR, se anotan, participan como speakers. La idea es que participemos y seamos cada vez más. Desde tener un chat para decir, hey, no sé cómo desplegar una EC2, hasta voy a dar una charla sobre esta aplicación que monté con Generative AI en AWS. Podemos hacer lo que sea. Veo varias caras conocidas de gente que ha estado dando charlas durante el año. Anímense, ¿sí? Los invitamos a todos a participar. Los esperamos que participen. Disfruten del día y espero que nos veamos por ahí dando vueltas.
Bueno, y un repaso con los números que reflejan lo que estamos viendo hoy en persona. Hoy tenemos más de 30 charlas en simultáneo. Hace 2 días tuvimos que cerrar la inscripción en internet y dejar a mucha gente con ganas de inscribirse y sumarse al evento porque se había cubierto, sold out. Hicimos sold out en el AWS Community Day Argentina. Bueno, hoy esta sala está 350 personas de capacidad, el auditorio, otras 150 personas de capacidad, las aulas las tenemos también en overflow, así que bueno, todo un éxito que nos llena de orgullo y esto no sería consentido si ustedes no estuvieran hoy acá, así que muy bienvenidos y disfruten de este día que es para ustedes.
Últimas 2 cosas importantes. Van a ver por todos lados un código QR y también en las salas para completar la encuesta de satisfacción del evento. Les pido por favor que la completen porque eso nos ayuda a mejorar para el próximo evento. Y con ese listado vamos a tener a la gente que va a estar participando de los sorteos al final del día. Así que quédense hasta el final del día. ¿Sí? Bueno, no vamos a dar más vueltas. Muchas gracias a todos. Les presento a nuestro invitado especial, Jess Barr, VP and Chief Evangelist de AWS, es nuestro orador principal y va a estar dando nuestra keynote de hoy. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Okay. All right. Good morning, Argentina. Great to see you all. I'm so excited and happy to be here. This is actually my first time in your country, and I'm really happy to have the honor of speaking with you today. I know you've all had some really busy weeks, and what I'm really impressed is you all had your choice of so many things that you could possibly do today. It could be work or school or family or friends or relaxation. but you chose to be here. You came here to listen and to learn and to connect. I think that is a really good choice, and I think that you're going to be rewarded for it in your life and in your career. This is my first time here. I'm really looking forward to meeting you, to hearing your stories, to hearing your successes and your challenges. Maybe we'll get to say hello, and maybe we get to take a quick selfie together. Always enjoy doing that. And in my talk today, what I want to do, I want to share what I think of as some of my secret tips for success in life and in your career. I've had a very long and very interesting journey in tech. I've been very fortunate to be able to do some really unique and amazing and interesting things throughout my life. Some of that's because of good fortune and luck. Other things I worked for, not everything was a success, but I do think that there's a little bit of a kind of a methodology for succeeding and for creating some luck. And the presentation I'm going to give you today, I first did last year at a very special group called the Amazon Future Engineers. The Amazon Future Engineers are students from high school, before college, that are interested in a technical career. And so I was asked to give a little bit of a motivational talk, if you will, to help them, to inspire them a bit, give them some pointers, and help them to figure out a way to navigate their way through life. Many of the students I spoke to were from what we might think of as kind of difficult or disadvantaged backgrounds, maybe economic challenges, maybe they didn't have a stable home life. So for them, this opportunity to build a career in tech was just a very amazing opportunity for them. And to be able to inspire them and to help them was to me a wonderful opportunity. I would like to tell you that I did use some AI to create my presentation today. I used the Amazon Bedrock console. I did some translation from English to Spanish. I did some kind of fine tuning to make sure that the Spanish was of reasonably good quality and appropriate for my audience. However, and I think this is very important whenever we talk about AI generated content, if something is not right, it's still my responsibility for that content. So we can give AI the credit for the quality of the content, but it's still on us to do the quality control and the quality checking. So a little bit of personal background. I'm a husband. I've been married since 1982. My wife is actually from Peru, and I have to tell you that I've been listening to her speak Spanish for 44 years. I maybe understand 200 words of vocabulary at this point, unfortunately. If you speak really slowly and you keep things very kind of simple, maybe for a 3-year-old, maybe I can understand. So, but other than that, maybe a little easier if we can communicate in English. Parent, I have 5 grown children, all who work in tech. We have 7 grandchildren. I've always been a technologist. Since I was very, very young, I enjoyed various kinds of understanding of technology, from the space program to electronics. I'm a maker and a builder. I love to make things with 3D printing and Lego. And for my job, I'm the VP and Chief Evangelist for AWS. Now, I put things in this particular order for a really important reason. This is one of my little tips I like to share. It's very easy, I've found in life, to define yourself by your job and your job title. But jobs and job titles change. And if the way you think of yourself is primarily by your job and your job title, that can change or it can go away. And the other ways that you define yourself, most of these are going to stay around for a bit longer. So I actually find that it's beneficial to kind of think of my job and my title as the last interesting thing about me. So what do? All right, so I've been at Amazon since 2002. I'm going to tell you the story in a little bit of how I actually came to create the luck that got me that particular job. And at the very start of when we were just getting ready to start publishing all the different web services, this is going back before SQS, before S3, before EC2, I was working directly with Andy Jassy, who was at that point in charge of all of AWS. And I see Andy's writing these documents. At Amazon, we call them the narrative. These narrative documents, and he's talking about the storage and the compute and the database and the messaging that we're going to start building. And I've already got the role of web services evangelist. I've got that job title. But as I'm going through these documents and realizing that we're going to be launching all these services, I proposed to Andy that I create a blog that we could use to widely share all these amazing things that we're going to be building and making available to our customers. So in November of 2004, I started the AWS News blog. So we're coming up on the 20-year birthday of the news blog. Since then, I've published 3,310, I think, posts to that blog. And it's grown from simply me to an entire team of bloggers working together. My colleague, Liz is here. She's our newest member of our blogging family, and we're super happy to have her as part of our team. So I'm on social media. I do video streams, including the AWS On Air on Fridays, where I do the latest news. I do customer meetings, and I do special events like this one. I'm always super excited to come to community events. And kind of little secret, I find community events the absolute best. I know that we do all kinds of somewhat commercial events at AWS. I still enjoy the ones where the community gets together and says, we are such big fans and big users of AWS, we're going to create our own event. So from the beginning, when I would go to the smallest of user groups and I would meet the communities to these now events that attract hundreds and thousands of people, I find the community events to be the most interesting and the ones that still are my absolute favorite to attend. So, and again, thank you all for being here. I know that it's sometimes a big challenge to come here on a weekend when you have many things to do. It's so wonderful to see so many of you able to get here. Let me tell you a little bit about my kind of road to AWS. As I said before, I've been in technology all my life. I spent my teenage years, I worked in a little store that sold some of the first microcomputers. Spent some time at startups, spent time at Microsoft working on Visual Basic and Visual Studio, and then some of the early Microsoft web service. But then came to Amazon in 2002, where I had this interest even before Amazon of working on web services and what I kind of thought of as back then as programmable websites that someone had an associated API. So I came to Amazon in 2002 when Amazon was among the first to actually offer web service APIs for the Amazon website. And I'll tell you a bit more about that and why that was something. Oops, bumped a little bit too fast there. What happened there? Got a little bit of a bounce. So I want to talk about this idea throughout my time with you today, about this idea of success. And I think with success, we find that there's this kind of like a myth that we often find in the popular media, but there's the reality of what I myself and I see others actually experiencing. Quite often now we can define success in a lot of different ways, but it's basically like you have some amazing idea and you need some things to happen, and then you're going to get to some new state or level of accomplishment or achievement in your life. That's what I kind of think of as is some kind of a success. Now, the myth side to me is that this often happens in just kind of a flash. Like you're a regular person one day, and then something magic happens, and now you're this totally different changed person. That's more like for movies and for stories and for reality. And that quite often that part of this myth is it just kind of happens. Like you're not expecting it, you're not working for it, you're not doing anything special to get to that point. It just kind of happens to you one day as you're just walking down the street. And also another aspect of this is often, well, back in the old days, for whatever perspective of the old days, that the world was somehow a better place and that there was more opportunity and more luck. I don't believe any of these are true. I think the reality for us is that success happens to us gradually, and sometimes so incrementally, in such small, gradual steps, we might not even quite realize it as it's happening to us. Now, I also have come to understand that to get to this point of success, we can do the what I call the title of my talk here today. We can actually create our own luck. And I'm going to give you some of my thoughts and ideas on perspective on how we do it. Now, I also think that there's more opportunity in the world today than ever before. Yes, there's been great things that have happened in the past with all of the wonderful technology, with all of the connectivity, with the access to free information, the ability to learn. I believe there's more opportunity now than there ever has been in the past. And we'll talk about that as we go through today. So I try to think of like, what is the kind of like the methodology of how you might go about creating some luck. I think these are the characteristics. You've got to have an open mind to the idea that things can change and that you can actually, something can be different in the future than in the current. You have to have an actual desire. You want that change to come about. Super, super important. Now, you're thinking that, okay, I'm here. I want to get to here somehow. You have to think, what needs to actually take place? Do I need to learn something? Do I need to meet some person and ask them for something? Do I need to actually take some action? So you need to actually figure this part out to make sure you're going to create your luck. Then you might say, well, I need to be in the right place. Maybe I need to be in the right job or the right school. I might need to come to the right event like this one. I might need to meet some person and tell them something, ask them something, cooperate with them in some way. And I need that right place to create this interesting opportunity for me. So you're kind of getting all prepped. And then you're thinking, okay, if I go to this particular event and I meet this person, I want something to happen. I want to ask them for an idea, a suggestion, a job, a recommendation. You need to actually get yourself set up and think, okay, what do I need? And when it's about to happen, how do I recognize that this is really going to happen? And so you're all set, you're ready to go. But then you need to actually take that action at the right point in time and say, okay, I'm in need of this connection, this reference, this goal, whatever you need. Taking that action, and I'm going to give you some stories in just a minute to kind of show you what this means in practice. You take that action, and then once you've succeeded once is not enough. You need to keep iterating and doing this over and over and over again. We'll talk a little bit about that, what that means almost mathematically. This is one of my favorite kind of meme pictures, and you can kind of interpret this a couple different ways as where is the success and where is the luck and where is the action happening here. So I'll tell you a little story of how I got my start in the computer industry. We're going back quite a ways to the very beginning of the personal computer. So if you know your computer history, you know we started with these giant computers, the mainframes. We then got smaller computers. So the mainframe was basically like an entire building. Sometimes we went down to the mini computer that could fit in a big room, and then we went from there. We went from mainframe to mini to the microcomputer. Kind of in the mid 1970s, the microcomputer, which was basically like the personal computer or the desktop computer. So at this point, the world is changing because we're going from something that's going to cost so much that only a large company can purchase it, down to the point where an individual can purchase a computer. So I was lucky enough as a teenager to have a job in one of the first stores in the world that actually sold these brand new microcomputers. It was literally called the Retail Computer Store. But I was 16 years old at the time. I don't know anything at all really about this new industry. So the job I'm hired to do is, as all of the books and the magazines and the data sheets are arriving at the store, My official job is simply open up all these boxes and put everything up on the shelves for our customers to buy. But I'm in this brand new, really exciting field, and I'm super excited. I'm very interested and very curious. I spend a lot of my time actually reading all this information before I'm putting it up on the shelf. In Amazon terms, we actually have our Amazon leadership principles. And we have this one called dive deep, which means that you spend time actually studying and investigating a topic. So I'm diving deep into this subject matter. What this meant for me and for the customers, as now most other store employees, they were interested, but they were not really as kind of committed or passionate as I was, let's say. So the other store employees, they did not spend this time understanding this brand new, really exciting field. So when people would come into the store, customers and potential customers, they might say, well, I've got this computer. What if can I make this connection? Can I plug in this board? Can I use this software? They had not put the energy into studying like I had. So what would often happen, they would say, oh, over there, there's this young guy, kind of long hair, messy kind of guy, but he's the one who can answer your questions for you. And so that meant that my time actually spent understanding this technology and explaining it was a little bit of my initial path to success. When I look back at this, what I realize is that I'm really actually doing the very same job today. So that we're 1976 today. We're almost 50 years from that time. So this basic idea of find a topic of interest to you, understand it in as much detail at the most detailed level possible, understand it, and then find some kind of satisfaction and enjoyment from explaining that concepts. That is literally my job description today as evangelist. Understand the various AWS services, go into the deepest level possible, and then explain them to audiences. So somehow in this kind of big circle of life, I find that I'm doing the same thing I'm doing today as I was when I was 16 years old. So that's kind of a little bit of how I got started. And looking back on this, I realized that I was creating luck by studying, by being prepared, by being very open to talking to our customers as they came in. And a great way to start. All right. Okay. You all know who Bill Gates is, right? Yeah. Yes. Anybody know? Okay. I was actually in this room yesterday talking to computer science students that were all like younger than all of my children. And I'm thinking maybe Bill Gates is just this really old guy. They don't even know who he is. But luckily they still did, fortunately. Okay. Let me tell you how I got to chase Bill Gates. This was really fun. Okay, so the year is 1988. I'm working at this little software startup in Virginia on the East Coast of the US. We have this great product, and Microsoft announces their first kind of Unix-compatible operating system. This was even way before Windows happens. So Microsoft announces this operating system, and we really need to get a copy of it. Now, think back to those days, if you were around in those days. Back in those days, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have email. It was really hard to, like, there was no contact point, there was no website. When you needed something, you needed to have sometimes personal connections to these companies. And we're just this little tiny startup with a couple people. Microsoft's already a pretty big company with a couple thousand people. But we need this software in order to get our program ported to it so we can actually create a new business around it. All right, so I've got some friends in Seattle, and I have this kind of idea that I'm somehow just going to go to Microsoft and knock on the door and somehow get the software. Not the best of plans. I don't have any details figured out. I get there, and it's the weekend. I'm driving past the Microsoft campus just to make sure I know where it is. And as I'm driving past, it's like a Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. I'm driving past, and by total coincidence, I see Bill Gates getting into his car. This is kind of interesting. What could I do? Well, I'm not like a stalker, but I say, I'm going to follow Bill. Let me just follow Bill, see what happens next. Well, I kind of keep a respectful distance, follow him up the road a bit, and then what happens? Well, Bill pulls into this McDonald's, and he's there, and I'm thinking, this is kind of this interesting opportunity here. What can I do? And one thing I got to tell you is kind of back in those days, I was kind of a very quiet, very shy person. So the idea of talking to strangers, much less someone who's kind of like famous, was like, that was not me at all. I was like the most quiet, shy person you can imagine. But I'm thinking also, this is my only chance. If I'm going to get that software and help my company to succeed, this is my only chance to make that happen. So I follow Bill into the McDonald's. He gets his order and he sits down, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. So I take a really deep breath and I go right up to his table. I sit down, I introduce myself, and I very, very quickly say, I'm with this company. This is our product, and this is what I really need from Microsoft. And he really quickly listens. He kind of wipes his mouth a bit. He listens, and he's like, okay, that sounds great. On Monday morning, you need to call this person, tell them that you and I met, and you'll get what you need. Like, oh my gosh, this actually worked. So, but the interesting thing about this is there wasn't a plan. But what happens sometimes in life, what I've kind of realized is there's these intersection points in life where maybe it's you and another person and the opportunity, and it's almost like a multi-dimensional kind of like multiple lines intersecting in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 dimensions. Sometimes that's like the only time in the entire history of the universe where all those things will line up. And suddenly you say, you know what, if I don't do it, and if I don't do it right now, no one else can do it. And there's never going to be another time where this can actually happen. And I think that part of success is when you start recognizing these situations for yourself and saying, this is my chance, this is my opportunity, and it comes down to me. I'm the one who has to actually do this and make it happen. So I got that referral. I called the person on Monday. I got the software. I called home to my company, to the CEO, and I said, you'd never believe what I just did. I followed Bill to this McDonald's. I kind of cornered him, got the software. I'm on my way back. He's like, oh my gosh, Jeff, that's just kind of like the most amazing, crazy thing ever. So that was kind of one of those things that kind of gave me this little bit of confidence and said, well, you can do these little bit of unusual things with a goal in mind. You know, plan it, figure it out, make sure that you know what opportunity you're looking for. So when it's there, the important times, I think, is knowing what to ask for. If you go into a situation like that, say, wow, it'd be amazing to meet this particular person. It's good to meet and say hello, and maybe take that selfie. That's great. But if you have a specific request, be ready to make that request. I love to meet people all the time, and we get to chat. And sometimes they say, you know, I need a connection, or I need a referral, or I have a challenge with a particular part of AWS. Be ready and be prepared with that request, so that when maybe we're only going to get to meet once or twice in life. So whoever you need to meet, make sure you've got that request ready to go, and so that when the opportunity comes, you are totally ready for it. Okay, let me tell you the last story of my presentation. Let me tell you how I ended up working at AWS. So I'd spent some time working at Microsoft on very early web services. Okay, anybody remember SOAP or UDDI or WSDL or XSLT? Anybody? Oh, wow. Okay, good. The interesting challenge sometimes of being in these businesses for a long time is your technical references and your cultural references are like so old in the past, like no one knows what you're talking about. But certainly these old XML-based technologies kind of had their time. So I was working on these XML technologies at Microsoft. I actually didn't enjoy that job too much, so I left to do some new things. And almost all the work I did involved web services in some way. Was doing a lot of work with XML. I was doing a lot of work with RSS and news syndication way back then, and really had this interest in websites that somehow had APIs. So I was working and consulting in a couple different situations with that. So I'm somewhat immersed in the whole web services business. So I'm following all the different kind of news and announcements and so forth. One day in 2002, I see this little announcement somewhere that says Amazon now has web services, and they're XML-based web services. I see that, and I'm like, I know Amazon. I'm an Amazon retail customer. I know what XML and web services are. This looks kind of interesting. So I hunted it down and I clicked through, and I saw that just that very day, Amazon had announced these XML-based web services to give developers access to the product catalog. This looked actually kind of exciting to me because it looked like one of the first big companies to actually start publishing APIs in the form of web services. So I downloaded it. There was like a little tiny SDK and a little tiny bit of documentation. I liked what I saw, so I immediately wrote some samples, but I also said, this is pretty good, but I bet it could be even better. So I very quickly sent some feedback to the company, and it turns out that this is just a great thing to do when you're an early adopter. When you're an early adopter of any new piece of code or an application, you're among the first to use it. You have this great opportunity to connect with the originator, send them some praise, send them some feedback, send them some ideas for what they can do differently or better. I send this feedback in within about 48 hours after this is released, and they reply and they say, that's kind of cool. Why don't you come into our office and tell us a little bit more about what you think? That went well. And they said, guess what? We're going to have a developer conference. Come to our developer conference so you can learn even more about our plans. So at this point, I'm doing consulting, but I'm kind of thinking it's time to get back to an actual full-time job. So I'm kind of thinking, maybe there's a job opportunity in some of this. So I go to this dev conference, and it's kind of strange because it's me and 4 other developers. So there's 5 members in the audience, but there's 10, 20, 30 Amazon folks there. And we're kind of sitting in the center, and all the Amazon folks are kind of on the outside of the room, a little bit unusual. But nevertheless, I go to this, and they start talking about all of the initial success that we've had with this. And now when we talk web services, I'm talking way before even SQS. This is the very, very first Amazon e-commerce service that we talked about here. It gave developers access to the Amazon product catalog and the shopping cart. So you could pull down data, you could select from it, and you could actually put it in the shopping cart to start checkouts. What I learned during that day, one of the Amazon employees gets up and they start talking about the fact that pretty much the story I told you. They published the web service, they announced it, they saw that within 48 hours developers had found it, were building and sharing applications, and then they said, we're so excited by this initial success that happened in 48 hours that our next challenge, we're going to look around the company. We're going to find other interesting things that we can put APIs on and publish those for developers. So I'm sitting there, and I'm actually standing next to the person who invited me. Her name was Sarah. I'm standing next to Sarah. I hear this, and so I hear web services. I hear APIs. I know there's a big company involved. I hear developers, and I suddenly think, wow, this can be pretty cool. The fact that this big company is going to take all of their internal systems, turn them into APIs for developers. I suddenly think, this is so awesome. I have to be part of this. So I turn to Sarah, and I literally tell her that. I say, Sarah, I want to be a part of this. And she says, Jeff, that's good. We can make that happen for you. We can hire you. And before I know it, I'm going through the Amazon interview process, and I'm hired onto the Amazon Associates team as a developer. I end up learning Perl for like the 3rd time in my developer career. Luckily, it was the last time I had to use Perl for a long time to come. And 22 years later, I'm still there. But being ready, being at the point of seeing that opportunity, and then when the opportunity was there, simply saying, I want that opportunity, is like this essential part of figuring out how you're going to succeed and to make progress. All right, let's talk a little about this idea of iteration. We often, within Amazon, we have this interesting phrase when we talk about our methodology for product development and for launches. And it turns out there's this kind of technical term called the OODA loop, O-O-D-A. It turns out, has its origins in the military. You're training pilots that are flying through very challenging conditions. So the pilots are trained to literally run this loop in their head probably several times per second. And their steps are observe, to look around, to orient yourself, kind of get a sense, now that you've made your observation, kind of figure out what you're seeing, based on what you see, make a decision. Like, do I go this way or that way? Do I stay in my current job? Do I get a new job? And then once you make that decision, actually take the action. Now, the interesting part of this is the phrase on the right. I translate this because I think it's so significant. The speed of the iteration beats the quality of the iteration. So what this means that as you are trying to create or build or improve yourself, taking many small steps, going through this decision loop and this action loop, doing that many times in a small set of increments is going to give you better results than if you observe for a long time, orient for a long time, decide, and act in a very kind of a long-term basis. So this basically says be quick, be responsive, be able to act very quickly, and keep fine-tuning your decision-making process as you go. So the way I think of this in tech terms, let's say we see some new interesting technology emerging. We see something new. Okay? We have to kind of decide, well, what's it all about? Is it something I need to actually spend some time understanding and learning and maybe put into use? So you see some new technology emerge. You think, is this useful or not to me? So you make that orient to kind of figure out what it's all about. Then you say, do I want to go ahead and learn this? Or is it kind of so far off to the side that I don't think it's interesting and useful to me? So you make that decision to either learn it or to ignore it. But then after you make that decision, you actually go ahead and act. So you study it and you use it to learn and to build something. So while this was originally designed for training pilots, I think this loop, this idea of iterating quickly in the different phases and actions within our life, I think this has some bigger relevance and is worth keeping in mind. All right, click. Where are we? Okay, so let's kind of apply this to today's world. This is an AI-generated image. I asked for a confused and overwhelmed software developer in front of a laptop. This is how I feel every day right now, as I read about AI, and every time I'm saying, well, here's this interesting thing. I should really study some more about this particular one. I say, wow, that's kind of interesting, but here's this other interesting thing too. And here's another one, and here's another one. What should I do? What should I actually study? So the AI world of today, I think we have many choices. We see that everything is changing on a very rapid basis. We know that it's a very early stage technology, so we need to make sure that we're getting ourselves a little bit prepared and grounded in it. We see a lot of excitement. We see a lot of power coming from AI, but many unknowns. So I don't know about you, but for me, I wouldn't say confused as much as kind of overwhelmed by the amount of just amazing technologies being built. So what are my thoughts for how we might be able to deal with this a little bit? Well, I think we have to be somewhat calm, kind of say, well, I'm going to not get too overwhelmed by all that I see. I'm going to try to study something new every day. And I do find that when we're working with new technologies, you need to set aside part of either your day or your week and say, this is my research time, my personal R&D time, where I need to make sure that I'm staying current with the newest technologies. I would also say we need to remain flexible. Like, you're going to study all different parts of AI, and you're going to say, well, I see this model and this model and this model. Don't experiment with one, get some experience with it, but also say, maybe that experience I get with this model, I'm going to take it for a while, but then I'm going to end up using another model entirely. We see almost every week, we see a brand new model announced as better and better and better than the previous ones. So keep yourself flexible, keep exploring the different options that are among those available to you, but it's whichever one you choose. I would almost say it doesn't matter which model or which tech you choose, as long as you pick something and you actually are putting your time into getting that experience. I always recommend that as part of studying, that you build something with it, and that you should also try to track your progress as you go through that. All right, let me skip a little bit of this because it's going a little bit long. Oh, okay, there we go. Wanted to Yes. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. This is a really important lesson that I learned pretty early in my career. We need to pay. We're in an industry. The computer industry is really, but in comparison to many others, is still relatively new. Okay, the first computers are in the 1930s, 1940s, and most of this tech here is well under 100 years old. So we're in a brand new, rapidly changing field. But at any given point, we're probably using some technology that's somewhat mature. It's been polished because it's been through several different releases and versions. So it's polished, it's been perfected, it works really well, it's got all the details, it's got all the features, doesn't have any like kind of challenges or rough edges. But whatever field we're looking at, there's always then a next generation. Now, the next generation, by definition, it's probably not perfect, it's not fully polished, it's got some defects, it's got some challenges, but it's promising, it's heading in the right direction. What I've learned, what I've found over time, it's so important not to get kind of too attached or too kind of fixed on one generation of technology. Always be happy with the one you have, but always look to the next one and say, okay, I'm going to adopt this next one as it starts, whatever is the point where you say, okay, this is good enough for me to start using it. So this idea of being an early adopter, as I talked about earlier, you want to be that early adopter. You want to start using these technologies before they're finished and polished. Use them early enough that you can actually connect with the creator, give them that feedback, help them to improve it over time. This is kind of my last, is that my last bit? Let's just skip that one. Actually, no, we'll do this one too. Wait, where'd that one come from? Hang on just one sec. That one, okay, this is just bouncing, but okay, this one. Okay, this is kind of another important tip here is, as we're going through and you're learning this new technology, whatever it might happen to be, whether it's something related to AI or some AI service or something totally different, I think there's this important value in you do something once and you can get value from it twice. So you're gonna go through your studies, you're going to learn something or build something new. Create some notes as you go along, and then use that as the basis to create some content. I think that the world always needs more authentic content from creators that says, okay, I wanted to go about and learn this new technology, create a video, create a blog post, use some social media, create some code. But you'll do that work once to learn, but you don't have to then do double that work to create the content. You almost think of that content creation as a side effect of your learning. And by doing this, you're going to have a nice record of the work. You're going to have something nice and shareable to do. And you're also going to effectively invite some other people to come along with you on your learning journey. So this to me is almost like a little bit of a cheat code that helps you to get double value from the work that you do. Click. One more click. There we go. And also one amazing aspect of the world today, we all have access to so much in the way of free and open resources. Make sure you take advantage of all this amazing content, from source code on GitHub to articles on Wikipedia to YouTube videos to the various kinds of free training, free dev tools, code libraries. There's so much that is now at your fingertips. The job for you is actually find it and sort through it and find the pieces that are most interesting and helpful to you. Also, please feel to find me on social media and connect. You probably find me on LinkedIn is my most kind of common place to be, but you can find me on X and on Threads as well. And I'm always happy to connect. And even if I can't always respond, I love to read everybody's messages and postings and hear about your learnings and your successes and the great things that happen to you throughout your career and your life. And with that, oops, where'd we go? Okay, well, I guess the presentation just decided it was finished. With that, I have really enjoyed speaking to you. I do hope this was useful and valuable. You can take away some good lessons from this. I'm going to do my best to be here for the rest of the day. And honestly, I would love to be able to meet and say hello to everybody here. So please let's get together, say hi. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear your AWS stories of what you've built and what you've done and how it's helped you to grow in your career. I that, and it's one of the reasons that I'm always happy to go out and to visit user groups. With that, I want to wish you to have an amazing, wonderful day that's all full of opportunities and connections, and that you'll hopefully remember this day and this event for a long time to come. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a real joy to speak to you. Gracias. Absolutely. All right. Yeah.
Vamos a hacer unas 2 o 3 preguntitas. Si alguno de ustedes quieren hacerlas, nosotros les traducimos a través de las preguntas. ¿Quién quiere hacer alguna pregunta? No. Ahí no con el micrófono y...
Okay.
Un placer. Estaba hablando en inglés, pero estoy un poco nervioso, así que lo voy a hacer. Quería preguntarte cómo AWS puede liderar sin que le pase lo que le pasó a IBM, que fue vencido por una tienda que vende libros y
He asked how AWS can lead, Amazon can lead without pass the same thing that happened to IBM that was overpassed by this is
By the competition. Okay.
Chance.
Okay. So that's a really important question. We have a model at Amazon that we call the day one model, and so we're the thinking is that we always say it's still day one. Now, what that means is that we try to remain flexible. We want to be innovative. We don't want too much in the way of bureaucracy. We simply want to be able to listen to customers, understand customers, build services to meet the needs of our customers. We have this idea that if we are slowly slipping into day two, that day two might be more bureaucracy, too much decision-making process, being slow, not able to respond. And if we're in a meeting and if we see some of these kind of signs of day two, we will actually say, I'm sorry, but that's kind of a day two philosophy. We need to get back to day one. So we kind of check ourselves to make sure that we're not going from day one to day two. Helpful?
¿Alguna otra pregunta para Jeff? ¿Alguien más que se anime? ¿Dónde tenemos otra pregunta?
Hello. Yes. Go ahead. Okay, I will try it in English. Nice to meet you, Jeff. And I have a question. In your whole career, and in your whole experience, and in your specific role now, you're visiting Argentina for the first time. So the question I have is, why and how do you see the community in Argentina, and which is the opportunity that you see nowadays?
Oh, wow. So let's see. I've been to community events in LATAM, in Peru and Chile, and now here. And what I'm impressed with is just the strength and the power of the communities that I see here. The idea that our users find AWS like so helpful to them and has such a bright future that our users are willing to put their own time and energy and money and identities into creating an event like this to basically say, we like this so much that we think you will like it as well. is it's very impressive. It makes me really excited, I think, for the future of AWS all across LATAM. And what I've learned from the meetings that I've had, actually the meetings I had last year, I was lucky enough to, my wife was able to come along. And so we got to meet with the AWS girls in Chile and in Peru, and to meet with representatives from several other countries as well. What really impressed me was the dedication to learning, and they basically, this amazing understanding that said that having a career in tech and learning cloud and learning AWS, building certifications was such a route to a better future for them and for their families and for their descendants. And the energy and the passion that I saw in those groups for learning, it left an impression on me that I remember every day. I think of like, wow, the strength of these communities and how dedicated they are to learning and to getting past challenges was very inspiring. Was super inspiring. And I've often told the stories of the meetings that my wife and I were able to have with the AWS girls in these different countries, and to get a sense of what a difference tech was going to make for them. And I will never forget those lessons. Honestly, those were deep lessons in my heart, if you will, to like, wow, this is what tech is all about, to help people make better lives for themselves. That's what I think of these great communities.
Una pregunta más. Aquí.
Hola, Jeff. Me gustaría hacerte una pregunta personal.
I would like to ask you a personal question.
Quisiera saber si
I would like to
tu
know
propósito en vida
if your
actualmente
purpose in
relacionado con tu
life
trabajo,
is strictly related to
y
your job,
personalmente, ¿cómo haces para
and personally,
mantenerte
how
en
is it
confianza y
that
motivado
you
ante la
stay,
incertidumbre
you maintain the confidence and trust in the future for future opportunities?
Okay, so another wonderful question. I work very hard to have a good balance of personal life and family life and work. So I do have 5 grown children. We have 7 grandchildren. I spend as much energy on my work life as I do on making sure that my grandchildren are growing up well, and I see all of them almost every week, and make sure that they can benefit from having a grandfather that is interested and engaged in their lives. I know that for all of us, we're always working on this work-life balance or work-life harmony. I think that you have to put as much energy into your family as you do into your work. It's sometimes almost a little bit too easy to say, well, my work takes a little bit of precedence over my family. I think you have to resist that kind of force and say, my family is really important. They carry on after I'm gone. So I'm very like engaged and enthusiastic about leaving that good legacy behind, of being a good parent, being a good grandparent. Something I think about a lot. Oh, there you are. Hi.
So I'd like to ask you, how would you suggest community builders strike the right balance between hosting events in real life and keeping a digital presence?
Oh, wow. So I really think that's going to depend on the very specifics of the community. There are groups that so one of the first user groups that I was connected to with AWS was a group in Japan called JAWS UG. So JAWS UG is about, I think, 12 years old now. And I was at their very first meeting in Tokyo, where they had somewhere between like 30 and 40 people showed up. Little tiny meeting, but the thing about those small meetings is that you always say, well, the right people showed up. Right? They were the ones that said, okay, of all the choices I might have to do today, this is what I chose to do. So over the course of those years, JAWS UG grew from that initial meeting in Tokyo to basically user groups spread across every prefecture across all of Tokyo. And then they've got subgroups for various special interests. They've got one that's kind of a women's only user group. I think they've got like between 50 and 60 different kind of elements of their user group now. So they grew into the tens of thousands by doing that. And then the pandemic happened. And then their ability to meet in person just stopped for a couple of years. So they went to a digital presence. The digital presence was, I don't think, they put a lot of energy into it, but it's hard to actually connect with people on a long-term basis digitally. It's just not the same looking at a screen and you don't see people, you don't see faces. So the digital presence, I think, despite a lot of work and they're doing great, great content and great events, you realize that the face-to-face, I think, is still very, very valuable. So I sometimes think of the digital part as kind of almost like the historical record of what's happened. But I don't think there's a digital substitute for the quality of live events, honestly. I mean, I know that they take more work and you have to actually travel and go to them. But the opportunities to connect and to interact just don't happen online digitally as they would do face-to-face. So all things being equal, I still think that face-to-face events have a wonderful place in the world.
Muchísimas gracias y le vamos a pedir un aplauso para Jeff. Muchísimas gracias. Ahora en 5 minutitos vamos a hacer un cambio rápido, ya que venimos atrasados con la agenda y vamos a tener ahora. No puede haber gente parada en la sala, así que chicos, los que están parados al fondo, si quieren venir, aquí tenemos un montón de lugares disponibles en distintos lugares para la siguiente charla, así que muchas gracias.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. Great. Really.
Yeah. ¿Listo? ¿Listo? Vamos a cambiar el micrófono.
Appreciate it. I want to actually.
And actually, if you do something, if you have a meeting with somebody and you
Yeah, for your Q&A, you will need interpretation, right?
You can look
All
at
right.
me or Daniela. We are there if you need us. to
Sounds good. How was my speaking speed?
Great.
Good?
Was
Okay.
fantastic. Lovely presentation.
Oh,
I loved
thank
it.
you.
She will need
So you need a headset to wear when
yeah,
I'm talking.
no,
No.
for the Q&A.
For
For the Q&A,
the Q&A.
yeah, she will interpret Spanish for you.
Okay.
With the headset.
I mean, if not, we have to do this. I need to come here and whisper to you the questions. Up to you. I think just whisper like be better. What do you think? Okay.
That's
Okay.
yours.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
it's your choice.
Okay.
We
Okay.
have
I'll be
to
okay. So
kind of go
right?
there.
Ahí está,
Ahí
no es
estoy.
el Face.
No, pero ese es el mío. Ahí está bien.
Bueno, sí me cago y andaba a presentar la web.
You look super beautiful. That picture.
Oh,
It's
thank
such
you.
a nice pic. I love it.
Thank you.
Hola. Bueno, vamos a comenzar con la siguiente charla. Tenemos una especial, una amiga, Campbell, que nos va a estar hablando, charla desbloqueando el éxito en la carrera en la nube. Así que un aplauso y la recibimos para que.
Buenos días. Soy Farah Campbell, and Content Day. Oh, I'm like, I need to look at my notes. Content Day aquí. I am really happy to be here. I am a little bit nervous. It's always hard to come after somebody like Jeff Barr. He's definitely been one of my idols for a very long time. But I do think you're going to find a few synergies between our talks, and I hope that you get something out of it. Before I get started, I do want to say a huge thank you to all the organizers who put this event on, all the volunteers that help support, the sponsors, and taking the time the Saturday to join us here at the AWS Community Day. And just like Jeff, I find the community events to be definitely the events that I hold closest to my heart. I love connecting with everybody and just kind of feeling the energy that you all have. So really honored to be here with everybody today. I'm gonna start this. Okay. Okay. So a bit about me. I didn't end up on this stage today. It happened kind of by chance. And in all honesty, I actually, if I was my 18 to 25 to 30-year-old self, didn't think this is where I was going to be. I've made a ton of choices in my life, some not so great. When I was 18, my parents divorced. I was enrolled in college, didn't go to that college, decided to go to a different college. realizing that you have to be kind to yourself as you're learning something new, when you're starting a new job, maybe you're attending a new event and trying to figure out, where do you fit in? And then also you need to make sure that, you're celebrating, small wins, acknowledging those baby steps. Everything takes baby steps to get for movement. Nothing is going to happen overnight. So it's really, really important to celebrate those wins. And I think it's also really important to seek support. Surround yourself with people that, encourage you, people that lift you up. And I actually send myself reminders from my iPhone saying, practice self-compassion, remember to be kind, reach out to somebody if you're feeling down. You can do this, you're a badass, you got this, girl. And those things actually really, really help me. I had them popping up this morning. I often put them when I have big events that I know where I'm going to be scared. If I'm going to a meeting where I feel like I'm not quite suited to be in there or to have the voice in the room, I'm constantly sending myself reminders, reminding me that I do deserve to be there. I do deserve that seat at that table. And I started to think about challenges as they're opportunities for growth, right? So anything that you're trying to do, even if I fail at it the first time, and I didn't quite get there, if I learned something from that, that is actually not a failure. That's another step just to getting to where you want to be. And when I was researching this, just to kind of understand, is there a mindset around this? I did find one, and her name is Carol Dweck, and she talks about this growth mindset. And so everything is an opportunity for growth. Every failure, every step. The only time you ever actually fail is if you don't get back up again, is if you just, you quit because you don't feel like you're going to be able to achieve. So growth mindset is really believing that your abilities can be developed, through dedication and hard work, not shying away from tasks that you feel like are going to push you outside of your comfort zone. This is actually where learning and improvement happens. You learn a lot more when you're failing than you do when you're succeeding. And really to persist through those obstacles, setbacks and failures. When I was first building, a serverless app, when I was trying to understand about all the new technologies, this was so hard for me. I feel like I wanted to throw my computer 1,000 times. And I remember being stumped by a space that I couldn't even see that was making everything fail. And I learned from feedback. I would reach out to others and then try to figure out, where I was succeeding, where I actually had room for growth. And then really trying to surround myself with people that, were inspiring to me, trying to find ways to connect with others that, were doing something that I wanted to do and asking them how did they do that. I know, Jeff, I asked you multiple times, when I was getting started at AWS, how do I be successful? How do I get up on stage and talk to this audience in a meaningful way? I'd like to maybe just take a pause here and ask everybody to take a step, to think back to a time in your career, or maybe it's in your personal life where you faced a challenge or an obstacle. And what did you do? Do you wish that you would have done something different? Do you wish that you would have, thrown your hat into the ring for that job? Do you wish you would have walked up and introduced yourself to somebody, that you were at an event, you're like, I really wish I would have done that. And I know I've done that multiple times. And I think too, remembering that when you're going through challenges, and right now there's so much uncertainty, things are changing all the time. And so we have to be positive and, and focus on resilience. And it's kind of funny. I used to be, I didn't used to be who I am today. If you would have met me 10 years ago, you wouldn't, I don't think you would recognize that girl. I actually don't recognize that girl. I was pretty negative. I found ways to bring myself down. I found ways to seclude myself from others. And I realized that positivity is actually a choice. I could approach situations that maybe I wasn't happy with and decide that hey, I'm here in this long, long line. Why is it this long line? It's going to take forever. Instead, changing that to I'm so excited to be here. Look at all these people here. This is going to be so good. Or you have an interaction, with a coworker, or, maybe it's somebody online. and they say something negative, I could choose to, think that, hey, let that bring me down. Or I could choose to think, there must be having a very bad day to be talking to me like that, and make it, put that back on them and not take it on me. And actually, it's another research that I found was people with a positive outlook are 31% more productive. They're more creative. They have better performance, and they really do have more potential. And I think you do have to stay positive to be resilient in cloud computing. Our ability to bounce back determines long-term success. Think about how many projects you built, or new technologies you're getting started with that just were not working the way you thought were going to. You're learning a new programming language, and you're really good at Python, and now you're doing something in Rust, and nothing's working the way you want it to. You have to be resilient. You have to be able to move through that. And actually, positivity breeds positivity, and it makes other people feel happy when they're around you. Maybe they have a better outlook, and maybe just being positive, you can inspire somebody else to smile that day. And positivity is not about denying reality. It's about choosing the most empowering response. It's about choosing that I'm not going to let these things affect me, because I have a goal and a thing that I'm focused on. So I'm doing everything I can to ensure I can meet that goal. And remaining positive is definitely how I'm going to do that. Because if I'm being negative and weighing myself down with these negative thoughts, I'm probably not going to get there. And I think too, if you think about being positive in situations like a surrounding like this, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people don't forget how you made them feel. I mean, think about, hanging out with some friends, and you have somebody that's just constant negativity and everything's bad and this is happening and this is happening, versus that you're hanging out with somebody that's, has this positive outlook on life, and they want to make change. They're happy to be wherever they're at. They try to find, something to smile about in every situation. I'm probably going to tend to lean to, the person that's smiling and trying to be more positive, instead of somebody that's, working to bring me down. And connections are really important. I don't think success is a solo journey. Mine definitely is not. And a LinkedIn study actually showed 85% of jobs are filled through networking. How many people here in this room have gotten a job through a connection or through a user group? Yeah, a lot, right? And I think, when you're when you're networking and you're meeting others, starting to, make these connections, you're really about, building this strong network and this circle of trust, people that can give you feedback, people that can inspire you, people that can actually tell you when you're wrong, and that here's something that you could do to get better, but you need to trust those people. And it's really, really important to think about any situation with people. And I know that this was a big changing point for me, is when I was working, networking and meeting new people, everybody I met, it was a relationship. Nothing was based on a transaction. I was working to give, how do I help support you? Showing up and volunteering at events and meeting others, finding ways to be helpful at first. And then somehow, that help that I provided then turns back, and now these folks are helping me. And a lot of these relationships that you build end up, these become friends and, mentors, or, people that can help you later, long before in your journey. Again, I'll mention Jeff again because he was up before me. I met Jeff back in 2018. I was attending I spoke at Sydney Serverless Days, and then I decided to go to the AWS Community Day Melbourne because I wanted to get to know more people in the AWS community. I saw Jeff. I walked up and introduced myself. We talked a little bit there. Ended up having dinner with he and his wife. And then 2 years later, I am now at AWS. I reached back out and said, hi, I'm going to be your new coworker. And then I really had somebody that I could talk to, about how do you move forward best at AWS? What are the things that people are looking for? And that really, really helped me. There's other people like Kelsey Hightower. Kelsey Hightower lives in Portland, Oregon. I reached out to him. He's still one of my mentors today. In fact, he helped me to think about how I wanted to, address this talk and, what might I say that could be inspirational. And when I met him 10 years ago at a small meetup before he was even, Kelsey, at a company called Puppet in Portland, Oregon. And so I think it really is important to remember that every relationship, in these situations, not to think about it as a transaction, even trying to get something for you. This is something that you hope to have this relationship that will help you later on in your career. And I think too, it's like, it's really, really important to think about what stories we want to tell. What do I want people to say about me? What do I want people to think about, like the work that I did, throughout my career? And I think I'd ask you, like, what stories do you want to tell? What do you want the outcome of your, your journey and your career to be? I think it's really powerful that everybody showed up here today. I think community events are a great way to get connected, to find inspiration. There's so many people in here that are willing to help others. I know that there's study groups, there's people that work together to get certifications. And so I think, taking the time to, really think about, what it is that you hope to achieve in life, and then figuring out how do you, make those connections happen is really, really important. And I'm sorry, I keep forgetting I put these in English first, and then I put it in Spanish because I wanted to make sure everybody could read it. So I apologize that I'm not doing that. I'm not switching to that slide right away. But too, stop here and think about it, what do you want to get out of today? What do you hope at the end? And, hopefully you can find some inspiration in that. And I think it's really important also to remember that the stories we tell ourselves are so powerful. I remember my very first meetup that I went to. I recognized that I felt like a complete outsider. I didn't know anybody. I had no idea what anybody was talking about. And I was like saying, you're not supposed to be here. You're kind of an imposter here. What do you have to say? Or when I'm asked to get up on stage to do a talk, why do they want me to get up here and, say, what important thing do I have to say? So I think it's really, really, really important to recognize that inner self-talk that you're constantly going on in your head. I know mine talks all the time, even when I don't want it to, and I can't get her to be quiet sometimes. But really becoming aware of the negative thoughts, this internal dialogue that we're telling yourself, really can impact your confidence and your own self-belief. Oh, I did it again. I'm so sorry. I love when Jeff was talking about luck earlier, and luck is not something that just happens, right? And my uncle, and actually I want to say, Jeff and I did not see each other's slides. We talked about this on our flight and recognized that there was going to be some synergy. My uncle used to always say, the harder I work, the luckier I get. It's pretty crazy. The more things that I'm challenging myself, stepping outside of my comfort zone, the more things that I'm working to achieve, because, learning something new, changing your career, growing and evolving, it takes work. And it takes constant work. So the harder I work, the luckier I get is definitely a statement that I have running. I have it written on my mirror at home. Sometimes I'll write it on my hand if I feel like I need to remember. I have my tattoo says, if not now, when? So I'm constantly, trying to remind myself that I've got this and to keep moving. So to wrap this up, I guess the key takeaways I'd love people to to take from this talk is, I think that it's important to take risks and then believe in yourself that you can do it, because we all have something we can achieve. We can all put in that work to learn something new. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes support. It takes others. It takes bravery, positivity, connections. So think about those responses that you're telling yourself. Remind yourself, remind yourself to rebound when you have an obstacle. Bouncing back from setbacks. Building the network of trust, and really tapping into the expertise of others that you meet. And again, I know that there's a lot of people in this room that we can draw inspiration from. So I'd like to ask everybody here, what will you do next? What are you going to achieve? Is there going to be a new programming language? Maybe you're going to be the new, person that is going to get. Maybe you're going to be like new Gen AI thought leader. I know I'm not quite there, but I am. I did practice. I also use Claude for my translations. So if they aren't correct, you can blame Claude because. But anyway, yeah, I'd love everybody to think. What will you do next? Because I know that there's we all have the ability to achieve so much more than we ever thought possible. I know this was for me. And I don't come to these events just to, get up here and say, I want to connect with you. I want to learn from you too. I want to know how I can better help and, assist in your growth. So yeah, please, I'll leave this up here for just a second. And that has, I'm actually, I know Jeff said LinkedIn. I'm more active on Twitter. I'm not going to say the other name because it's still Twitter to me. And I'm keeping it that way. But I do use LinkedIn. It's just, I'm definitely a lot more active on Twitter. And then, so what's on the top of your AWS wish list? So I mentioned earlier, I work at AWS and I work with developers around the world, but I also work really, really closely with all of our service teams. And one of the things is, we want to do is I want to understand, where are the challenges that you all are facing? So what's on the top of your AWS wish list? What are the biggest pain points? Where are you finding things that are the most beneficial to you? And then I have an open-ended question. So anything else you want to tell us? I am cataloging all of these things. I will be writing a report that I'm going to take back to the service teams. I'm also going to share this with the organizers so they can pass this off to you. It's also going to be made available just through the user groups. I want to make sure that they have this. The survey is in Spanish, and I actually have a Q business app. Yeah, that's why I have my Amazon Q. A Q business app that I built that can actually ingest and synthesize all the information and will do all the translations for me. So super excited about this. We do not collect any personal information, but I do want to say I do have some items. So the first few that can show me a screenshot that they actually submitted to the AWS wish list. You can find me. I'll have a gray bag, and I have a number of different swag items that I will give you for taking the time to let us know, how we can, help you. And I think that is it. Yeah.
We're going to get to questions from people.
Okay.
Vamos a agradecerle a Sara, por la charla. Vamos a hacer dos preguntas del público.
Thank you for the presentation. And we'll take two questions from the audience.
La colaboradora tiene el micrófono, así que cualquiera que tenga una pregunta para...
the mic. Whoever wants to ask a question.
Well, hello. Thank you very much for the talk. I would like to know more about your career inside AWS, because you told that you were a serviceless hero. I think I saw it on the slides. And I would like to know how would you achieve it, or which path did you take to become an AWS hero? Thank you.
I like this question. So I actually didn't understand how the process worked, but now obviously now that I'm at AWS, and you do get your status of being a hero taken away when you work at AWS, because it's not about recognizing people that work there. It's about recognizing others that are doing impactful things for the community. Somebody internally has to nominate you, and actually you have to write an entire doc. Nelly she knows about this. So does Vinny and others. I mean, it is definitely a process. There is not a way to become a hero. I still actually don't know who nominated me or what they actually said, just because we're not supposed to look into old things unless you have a reason to be looking into, something. But yeah, I mean, I think, becoming a hero is really a secondary thing that happens as an acknowledgement that you're, out there, building communities, that you're working to help others. Maybe you solved the problem that you had been working through, and then you decided to write a blog post to help unblock others so they don't end up with the same thing. Maybe you're, have a group together and you're, translating docs to make it easier for the people in your community to be able to, to learn more about building architectures. Like I can only imagine how hard that is, with everything, with a lot of things written in English, in all honesty. So really becoming a hero is like a secondary thing. It was definitely not something I was trying to achieve. I will never forget when when they asked me, I was embarrassed because I didn't have the same technical capabilities as everybody. I built a few apps and I was trying to learn more about serverless. And, so I was using Stackry because it was a lot easier if I was going out to events and talking to developers, if I had some idea of what people were actually experiencing. My job at Stackry, though, like where I became the hero, my job was to build out the AWS relationship. And so I met a ton of people, in that role. And through that, like becoming here, I met so many people internally that I was offered a job. And they actually created the role for me at AWS to help bring containers and serverless together, actually. Because I don't know if you guys remember when serverless first came out, and they had like Kubernetes. It was definitely like, no, we're not. There's Kubernetes and then there's serverless, or there's containers and then there's serverless. And those the two were not coming together. So, part of what I was doing there at AWS was to bring together. Answer? Okay. Yeah, thank you.
¿Hay más?
Hola. Hoy en día tu trabajo es estar con los programadores. ¿De qué manera logran en AWS que los programadores sean más suficientes y de esa manera poder mejorar el soporte interno que tienen para ellos?
And how is the internal support provided to them?
So in my role, I really started, I was a category lead and was the head of the modern compute community. So I, work with AWS heroes, with AWS community builders, specifically from around the globe. And now my role has shifted a little bit where I'm still doing that, but I'm also working to, capture feedback. So I'm going to these events, like how do I capture feedback and understand, what needs are for a specific region or community. And so I work really closely with service teams. Some of that will be to, collect responses on, again, like where like the problems, where the wish list, so we can start to track that and I can maybe get some movement. You'll see me a lot in the open source community, so make sure that, we're better stewards there, understanding how do we help, some of the open source maintainers. I work too with the service teams to get developer feedback. So with, anything any new releases and development, we, we'll do private betas and get feedback from our AWS heroes and the AWS community builders. And I'm working to do some more of that with the user groups, and have some more like just developer focused sessions to be able to come here, next year. My goal is to be able to go to AWS summits and the AWS Community Days and, come with a group so we can just sit and meet with you all, and just try to actually have a conversation instead of just the forum to understand, how do we help you, or where are you finding your biggest struggles? And then from there, then I can take that, get that, synthesize that data, understand where the themes, and then we can figure out how to help, what can we do to be most helpful? Is it, training and certification events, is, getting somebody to write a piece of content? Is it helping people to understand, what they could maybe write about or maybe what talk about? So yeah, there's definitely multiple things. It's pretty exciting and always busy. We good?
Bueno, agradezcamos de nuevo con un gran aplauso.
Huh?
Vamos a tener una foto de público, así se levanta la mano.
Oh, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Can I? You ready? Oh. Okay, I'm gonna.
Thank you so much.
Vamos a hacer 5 minutos de empezar tu charla. Ahora te va a dividir el escenario en dos, así que los que no tienen auriculares, busquen auriculares al fondo. Vamos a tener 2 charlas en simultáneo y cada charla va a tener el audio en un canal de los auriculares. Los chicos, los voluntarios les van a explicar cómo seleccionen. Así que pueden ir a tomar sus auriculares y empezamos con la charla en simultáneo. Así estamos de nuevo en sus lugares. Muchas gracias.
Tenemos que colocarles otros micrófonos a,
cómputo. Luego vino la era del Internet. Ya, y el Internet nos ayudó a crear información, a crear datos. No sé, todos, me imagino que todos se habrán visto esa frase que dice que el nuevo petróleo son los datos. Pero no solamente nos dio datos el Internet, sino que nos ayudó a democratizar la información, a compartir el conocimiento. Y eso era, o sea, se vino dando porque antes, en los años 40, 50, para que un científico en Europa se enterara de qué descubrimientos había en Estados Unidos, parte del continente, tenían que tardaba meses, años tal vez. Entonces, todos estos tres componentes juntos vieron que fueron esta fórmula perfecta de convertir lo que conocemos hoy en día, la IA generativa, que, o sea, no va a quedar acá porque todo cada mes va creciendo. De hecho, el repo que yo les voy a mostrar hoy lo hice en mayo y esta semana cuando lo estaba revisando está desactualizado. Entonces, todo esto es así de masivo porque están los tres componentes activos y listo. Y bueno, como les acabo de contar, la IA generativa no es algo nuevo, es la bisnieta de la inteligencia artificial. Viene la inteligencia artificial, luego tenemos Machine Learning, que es parte, es su conjunto. Dentro de Machine Learning viene Deep Learning, y dentro de Deep Learning viene la IA generativa. Entonces, les quería contar esto, porque antes de desarrollar, de crear, de tener el poder, es bueno que sepamos un poco de dónde viene todo, que conozcamos la historia de las cosas, el pasado. Y bueno, con la IA generativa vienen los modelos fundacionales, Foundation Models, y hay tres tipos principales de modelos fundacionales. ¿Ok? Tenemos los que se llaman text-to-text, que pueden ser los que conocemos como LLM, Large Language Models, que nos ayudan a crear ideas, o sea, a crear desde nuestras ideas a nivel de texto. Tenemos una idea que viene siendo el input, resumir el artículo sobre el impacto de caminar en la salud cardíaca, generamos y tenemos un output. Tenemos el siguiente, que es texto embedding, que es el que nos vamos a enfocar hoy, que nosotros le damos un texto y nos va a generar un embedding, y el embedding no es más que una representación numérica de ese texto, una representación vectorial. Ya nos los posiciona en el espacio. Y tenemos el de texto image o texto imagen, que a través de las palabras, de nuestras ideas, él nos genera una imagen. Adicionalmente hay otro que no está acá, que son los multimodales, que son capaces de procesar texto e imágenes. Entonces nosotros le enviamos texto, nos responde texto y le podemos enviar una imagen y él nos va a responder de acuerdo a la consulta que nosotros le hagamos a esa imagen. Y bueno, ¿qué es lo que me trae acá? Hoy vamos a hablar un poco de embeddings y lo vamos a hacer a través de construir un buscador multimodal combinando texto e imágenes para una búsqueda inteligente. Y bueno, como Ricardo me presentó, yo soy Elizabeth Fuentes, soy developer advocate para la región en AWS, estoy basada en Chile, y antes de estar acá con ustedes como developer advocate, yo era líder de comunidad. Yo era user group leader y me acuerdo que aquí Damián, el giro de acá de Argentina, me invitó a un meetup donde mi demo me falló por problemas de Wi-Fi. ¿Te acuerdas? Pero bueno, gracias a estar en las comunidades, yo he crecido técnicamente acá como ustedes me ven, porque yo no crecí sola, ya yo crecí en conjunto con mi comunidad allá en Chile. Y lo que les quiero compartir a ustedes con esta mini historia antes de empezar a darnos duro con la parte técnica es que las comunidades están acá para ayudarnos a crecer, están acá para que nosotros compartamos nuestros problemas y ellos nos van a ayudar. Entre juntos los vamos a solucionar. Y esto no se mueve. Siguiente. Parece que me quedé sin amiga. Ya. Bueno, cuando nosotros desarrollamos aplicaciones con la IA generativa, con la Generative AI, tenemos que enfocar, o sea, tenemos ciertos problemas que tenemos que solucionar. Tenemos que acceder a múltiples modelos fundacionales para probar y fallar y buscar la solución que nosotros queremos encontrar, porque el primer modelo que vamos a encontrar posiblemente no va a resolver nuestro problema. Personalización del modelo fundacional, hay muchos tipos, ¿ya? Y a veces lo queremos personalizar. Tenemos que mantener la privacidad y seguridad de los datos, eso es muy importante. qué? Porque si nosotros utilizamos una aplicación que ya está desarrollada y le compartimos información privada de nosotros, corremos el riesgo de que esa persona que desarrolló esa aplicación tome nuestra información para reentrenar el modelo. Y luego ese modelo les va a entregar nuestra información cuando alguien le haga una pregunta y esa sea la respuesta que el modelo vaya a entregar. Tenemos que conseguir que los modelos fundacionales se ejecuten las tareas que nosotros queremos que ellos hagan también. Tenemos que conectarnos a distintas fuentes de datos, porque no solamente es invocar el modelo que nos dé una respuesta, tenemos que nutrirnos con nuestros datos personales para personalizarlo. Y por último, la gestión de la infraestructura. ¿Dónde lo vamos a alojar? ¿Dónde lo vamos a invocar? Ya es un fastidio, ¿sí? Cuando somos desarrolladores y no somos usuarios final, tenemos que pensar en estas cosas. Y bueno, aquí viene la parte de marketing. ¿Ya? Para eso, nosotros en AWS tenemos un servicio que se llama Amazon Perro, que es una forma de invocar estos modelos fundacionales, ya sea LLM o de text to image, con una sola invocación de API. Nosotros tenemos una invocación de API, una línea, le decimos qué modelo queremos invocar, le ponemos los parámetros, input, y recibimos un output. Y no nos tenemos que preocupar por la infraestructura, solamente nos tenemos que preocupar por escoger el mejor modelo, por alojarlo y crear una buena aplicación. Entonces, como les acabo de decir, tenemos un prompt y el input. Nuestra idea, la idea que estamos soñando en generar, se la mandamos a Amazon Berro y Amazon Berro nos genera un output. Entonces, cuando nosotros estamos desarrollando aplicaciones, hay unos enfoques comunes para la personalización. Primero, tenemos lo que conocemos como prompt engineering, donde prompt engineering es la forma más simple de personalizar el modelo, porque nosotros lo personalizamos a través de nuestras palabras, a través del input. Y hay algunas técnicas que no las vamos a ver hoy. La segunda forma de personalizarlo es a través de RAG, que sí lo vamos a ver hoy, que es personalizar el modelo con nuestros datos. Nosotros lo vamos a nutrir con nuestros datos y va a ser como una forma de entrenarlo nuevamente. Luego tenemos el fine tuning, que es cuando nosotros tenemos un modelo y lo reentrenamos de verdad. Y para eso necesitamos cómputo y alojar ese modelo. Y por último, tenemos que crear un modelo desde cero. Entonces, si se dan cuenta, mientras yo voy avanzando, es más complejo, más dinero y más tiempo. Ahora, todos acá seguramente han escuchado lo que es RAG. RAG por aquí, RAG por allá, pero algunos se ha tomado la molestia de ver qué significa. Porque claro, si nosotros vamos a las palabras, RAG no es más que Retriever, Argumentation, Generation. Pero cada palabra que forma RAG tiene un significado que es Retriever. Retriever es cuando nosotros hacemos la consulta y él nos entrega los datos. Y esos datos pueden ser muchísimas consultas, muchísimas respuestas que pueden responder la consulta que nosotros le estamos haciendo. Y con el augmentation es cuando esto toma todas las respuestas que nosotros entregamos, que él nos entregó, y nos genera la mejor respuesta a la pregunta. Es como enredado, pero es como que preguntar, tomar muchísimos documentos, después con todos esos documentos, él va a armar una respuesta y nos va a generar la respuesta a través de un output. Bueno, y ahora vamos a lo que nos compete. ¿Qué son los embeddings? Los embeddings para texto, como les dije, es una representación vectorial de las palabras. Aquí tenemos un ejemplo donde tenemos una serie de palabras, tenemos New York, y lo pasamos por un modelo de embedding que se encarga de hacer la representación vectorial, que es no más que números. Y bueno, tenemos una serie de palabras texto que se convierte en un vector. Para imágenes funciona similar, pero no igual. ¿Por qué? Porque nosotros no podemos enviarle, nosotros no podemos enviarle la imagen como tal. Ya, si bien él detecta la imagen, nosotros no podemos enviarle un JPG o un GIF a un módulo de embedding para que nos genere un vector. Él entiende texto, no entiende píxeles. Entonces, para que él entienda, nosotros tenemos que tomar esa imagen y convertirla en un base 64, ya que no es más que una conversión en Python. Entonces, nosotros tomamos nuestras imágenes, base 64, doc.gif, puede ser GIF, PNG, JPG o web. Estos 4 formatos son los que actualmente se pueden transformar en un vector. ¿Ya? Entonces nosotros les mandamos el base 64 y lo va a convertir en un vector. Esto es hasta el momento, porque ustedes saben cómo va avanzando esto, capaz le vamos a poder enviar un video y lo va a poder convertir. Y bueno, ahora el rack, ¿cómo funciona el rack? Primero, tenemos que gestar los datos. Este es el rack para texto. ¿Okay? Nosotros tenemos un data source, PDF, .txt, texto. ¿Ya? Si es PDF, tenemos que convertirlos en texto, ¿ya? Porque el PDF puede ser como una imagen, no necesariamente lo va a detectar como texto. O sea, él necesita el texto. Lo hacemos en chunk. Chunk es una forma de dividir ese texto en pedacitos y hay varias técnicas de hacer chunks, pero la más usada es que nosotros le decimos, mira, me vas a separar ese texto en pedacitos de 100 caracteres y me lo vas a overlap, que no me acuerdo cómo se llama la palabra en español, me lo vas a overlap 10. Entonces eso significa que de estos 100, los últimos 10 van a ser los primeros 10 y el siguiente, y así sucesivamente. Eso es para que cuando nosotros hagamos la query a ese vector, no se pierda la conexión entre pedacitos, ¿ok? Entonces nosotros tenemos los chunks. Cada chunk pasa por el embedding y nos va a generar una base vectorial. Y luego, cuando nosotros tenemos esa base vectorial, tenemos que hacerle la query. Y la query, el usuario, el texto del usuario se convierte en un embedding también. Porque cuando nosotros hacemos una búsqueda semántica vectorial, es una búsqueda matemática. Entonces, él nos entrega de este vector, él va a buscar el vector más similar de acá y nos va a entregar los vectores más cercanos a este de acá, y los vectores más cercanos nos van a ayudar a armar la respuesta. Ahora, cuando nosotros hacemos la parte de la generación de la respuesta, él nos entrega todo el contexto, todas las partecitas que nos dio la respuesta, y con un prompt armamos la respuesta. O sea, tenemos muchas respuestas posibles y otro prompt adicional, otro modelo adicional, nos va a ayudar a armar esa respuesta que estamos buscando. Espero que lo hayan entendido. Sé que es un poco enredado y si no lo entendieron, lo resolvemos en las preguntas al final. Pero lo van a ver en el código que vamos a ver a continuación. Y ahora para imágenes, ¿cómo funciona? Para imágenes, no las chonqueamos. Las imágenes no se dividen en pedacitos. ¿Por qué? Porque las imágenes son todo un contexto, ¿ya? Cada píxel de la imagen forma esa imagen. Y si nosotros picamos una imagen en pedacitos, va a perder el sentido de esa imagen. O sea, ya no va a ser esa imagen, sino que va a ser pedacitos de imágenes que no va a tener ningún contexto. Y una forma de reducirle el tamaño a la imagen, porque hay que reducirlo, se puede hacer a través de código, a través de técnicas del mismo Machine Learning, y luego que nosotros reducimos a la imagen a un tamaño aceptable por el modelo de embedding que estamos utilizando, porque si bien estos modelos son buenos, son poderosos, no todos aceptan un tamaño gigantesco ya en el input. Entonces hay ciertos tamaños que ellos permiten y para eso nosotros debemos achicar las imágenes. Una vez que lo hacemos, lo convertimos a base 64, embedding otra vez, y creamos una base vectorial de esas imágenes, que son números posicionados en el espacio. Y la query la hacemos igual, convertimos la query a vector y acá nos va a entregar la base 64 más la metadata, porque cuando nosotros creamos un vector le podemos poner metadata también, cuál era el nombre de esa imagen que creamos, podemos agregarle, si la imagen la tenemos guardada en un bucket de S3, podemos darle la respuesta, mira, la imagen similar a la que tú me estás preguntando está en este bucket, posicionada en este bucket de S3, en esta dirección. Eso lo podemos agregar en la metadata del vector store. Y bueno, aquí como son imágenes, no podemos pasarle un prompt para que nos haga la respuesta, porque como nos entrega pedacitos de imágenes, no tiene mucho sentido en esta ecuación. Luego lo convertimos a imagen, entregamos la respuesta. Porque este paso de acá ya viene siendo como opcional. Porque si ustedes están buscando la metadata de la imagen, no hace falta volverlo a transformar a una imagen. Y bueno, ahora vamos a la parte de la demo. Aquí en este código QR, bueno, que después lo puedo compartir, hay creo que es un blog del repo que vamos a ver ahora. Igual al final también voy a compartir el repo. ¿Ya? Entonces, aquí, ¿qué tiene este repo? Tiene 3 Jupyter Notebooks, donde vamos a ver el paso a paso del embedding. Vamos a convertir unos PDFs y luego vamos a crear una base vectorial local. Y luego vamos con lo que aprendimos en esos 2 Jupyter Notebooks, vamos a crear una base vectorial en una Aurora Serverless PostgreSQL. Ya, o sea, es algo que se escucha simple tal vez, pero es súper poderoso, porque vamos a tener el acceso de cualquier, o sea, una base vectorial de cualquier información en la nube, en una base serverless, y además que es PostgreSQL y van a poder hacer query a través de SQL. Entonces, démosle acá. Y bueno, para los que no están familiarizados con AWS, uno se puede crear una cuenta gratuita en esta página. Y cuando nosotros usamos Amazon Bedrock, si bien tenemos acceso a muchos modelos fundacionales, muchos vendors, tenemos que pedir ese acceso que dura no es más que segundos. Entonces lo hacemos ingresando a la consola, buscamos Amazon Bedrock y clic allá. Y bueno, buscamos Amazon Bedrock. Vamos, y aquí abajo, donde dice que no me puedo mover, donde dice Model Access, le damos clic y le damos acceso a todos los modelos que queramos utilizar. Aquí en este ejemplo, yo me solicito acceso a todos los modelos. Y bueno, yo creo que ya está, porque esta lo hice hace como 6 meses, me pedía salir a esa ventana donde me pedía llenar los datos. Ahora yo creo que no lo pide, porque lo hice recién y ya no lo pide. Y bueno, si se los llega a pedir es algo súper general, no tienen que poner tanta información. Y eso es todo. Ya esto dura como, si dura 1 minuto es demasiado. Ahora vamos al primer Jupyter Notebook. En este Jupyter Notebook, ¿qué vamos a ver? Vamos a construir una base vectorial local. Cuando digo local, vamos a crear el archivo de la base vectorial acá, mismo en mi computador, y la vamos a crear y le vamos a hacer query. Entonces, aquí yo tengo un PDF súper simple sobre la documentación de Amazon Bedrock. Lo voy a pasar por voto 3, LangChain. Los que no saben qué es LangChain, LangChain es un framework que está en Python y JavaScript, que nos permite manejar de forma más accesible, más fácil, los modelos fundacionales, los LLM, porque no son todos los modelos fundacionales, los LLM, los de una serie de clases que nos facilitan la vida. En este caso lo vamos a utilizar para la parte de procesamiento del vector. Entonces, bueno, y luego con un modelo de embedding, que es Titan, vamos a hacer la conversión. Ahí está, ahí me fui. Uy, lo siento, me fui. Ya, voy a darle play allá porque lo moví y se me fue. Deme un segundito. ¿Se está moviendo? Sí, perfecto. Vale, entonces acá, ¿qué vamos a hacer? Vamos a correr el Jupyter. Voy a ponerme ya para correrlo más rápido porque aquí me están haciendo ojitos de que me estoy extendiendo. ¿Y vale? Entonces, ¿qué hacemos aquí? A ver, vale. Me adelanté un poco, que es inicializar Amazon Bedrock y todo eso. Y acá tenemos el PDF que está alojado. En esta función de aquí, yo lo puedo chonquear. Ay, sí, suena horrible, pero es así. Se chonquea y si se fijan, acá le estoy pasando el overlap y la cantidad de caracteres, como les dije anteriormente. Entonces, esta es una forma de chonquear y también este Jupyter Notebook muestra otra forma de hacerlo, de forma semántica. Entonces, el documento anterior, él lo dividió en 25 partes y, o sea, cuando yo hago una query, hago una consulta, él me va a entregar toda esta información que está acá. Me dice, este texto está en esta página de este documento. O sea, como es uno solo, me va a entregar un solo documento. Y aquí tenemos una forma de hacer chunk utilizando semantic chunking, que esto utiliza un modelo fundacional, utiliza un LLM para hacer los pedacitos. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué usa modelo fundacional? Porque él necesita primero leer y entender la información para hacer los pedazos, porque cuando uno hacemos un chunk semántico, no debe perder el sentido del pedazo, ¿ya? O sea, lo hace de una forma para que el pedazo tenga un sentido, no se pierda. Y bueno, aquí va a tardar un ratito. Y luego, ¿qué hace la parte semántica? Bueno, lo vamos a buscar acá. Aquí vamos a revisar que los documentos no tengan partes vacías, porque a veces, o sea, puede haber un error. Bueno, nunca pasa, pero a mí me gusta tener la documentación limpia y por eso le pongo que si hay algo en cero, que lo saque. Y este nos dio ahora 32 pedacitos de ese documento. Es una búsqueda más pequeña, más fina, cuando nosotros vayamos a hacer la consulta. Y luego, aquí más abajo, vamos a crear el vector. Y bueno, vamos a utilizar una forma un tipo de base que se llama FAIS, ¿ya? Que o sea, es bastante bueno porque es rápida, te ayuda a generar bases locales y es open source. Creamos la base vectorial de los documentos y en este de acá podemos convertir la query en un vector. Este viene siendo el vector. Pero como estamos utilizando LangChain, no hace falta hacer eso, porque LangChain nos entrega librerías que lo hacen internamente por detrás. Cuando yo hago aquí la query nuevamente, yo solamente le mando la query, no le mando el vector. ¿Ven? Entonces, cuando yo voy a hacer la consulta, le digo K2 que me entregan los dos más cercanos. Se me entrega dos posibles respuestas y no tengo que mandarle el vector para que me haga la búsqueda y me entregue la respuesta. Y bueno, y aquí hay una forma de que me entrega la similitud del vector, o sea, el porcentaje de que esta es la respuesta correcta. Entonces, y nosotros también podemos hacer retriever y además, si se fijan, estoy haciendo la query con la base vectorial ahí mismo en el notebook y esa base vectorial yo la puedo guardar y la puedo convertir en una base local y luego la puedo rescatar. Entonces, supongamos que yo tengo una lambda que recibe una consulta y tengo esta base vectorial almacenada en una paquete de S3. Entonces yo puedo rescatar esa base vectorial del paquete de S3. Voy a pasar al siguiente porque también me va a tirar el cartel. Y ahora, ¿cómo hacemos la parte de búsqueda de la creación de bases de imágenes? Está perfecto, se mueve. Es bastante similar, pero la imagen se procesa de forma diferente. Como les dije, la pasamos a base 64. Antes de pasar a la base 64, hay que dimensionarla, porque cuando nosotros creamos el embedding, él solamente acepta un tamaño específico de imagen. Entonces, bueno, aquí importamos todas las librerías, o sea, lo mismo que hicimos anteriormente, y esto es para abrirla, para que podamos ver la imagen que nos trae en base 64, y por supuesto importamos base 64 para hacer la conversión. Bueno, aquí validamos la conexión, que siempre lo hago porque a veces tengo una cuenta que no está funcionando y es un fastidio que lleguemos hasta abajo y no esté. Entonces, bueno, hacemos el procesamiento. Voy a adelantarlo un poco porque si no, no va a echar tiempo de preguntas. Y aquí esta parte, bueno, aquí es donde hago la conversión. Bueno, parece que lo adelanté mucho, pero acá, ¿qué hago? Mando el base 64, una simple llamada de API, le meto el base 64 y me crea el vector. Eso es todo. ¿Ya? Es el código que está ahí. Este es un vector todo que está acá, que si se fijan, no debe tener más de 20 celdas. Es capaz de crearme una base vectorial y almacenarla. Y nosotros podemos correr hasta el Jupyter Notebook, porque no lo voy a correr ahora porque no me da tiempo, pero feliz de responder todas las consultas al final, donde corremos los mismos pasos que vimos acá, y la única diferencia es que vamos a tomar el vector y lo vamos a almacenar en una Aurora PostgreSQL. ¿Ok? Y no es más que código, ¿ya? Y con nosotros, con el poder del conocimiento, de poder estas funcioncitas, vamos a ser capaces de crear aplicaciones poderosas, ¿ok? Vamos a poder crear un buscador de imágenes similares de productos, ¿ya? Pueden levantar una base vectorial para un e-commerce que busque productos similares para recomendar también. Entonces es cosa de utilizarle un uso para su proyecto, o sea, lo que sea que estén utilizando. Cuando ustedes empiecen a correr esto, las ideas les van a llegar. Y ya, que sea. Y bueno, aquí les dejo otra vez la parte de la demo. Y adicionalmente, les quiero comentar que, claro, acá nosotros vamos a tener que mantener ese vector. Ya si nosotros cada vez que le vamos a agregar una imagen nueva, un PDF nuevo, o sea, un PDF nuevo, imágenes no va a funcionar con lo que les voy a comentar ahora, nosotros tenemos que ser responsables de mantenerlo, ¿ya? Pero nosotros tenemos un producto que se llama Knowledge Base, que nosotros le entregamos el bucket de S3 y él por detrás se encarga de crear la base vectorial y de administrarla y de crear el nuevo vector cada vez que nosotros le generamos un nuevo archivo. Y bueno, aquí está la cuña o la parte de marketing, que con Amazon Knowledge Base, Amazon Background de Knowledge Base, nosotros solamente le entregamos los documentos, el formato que sea a nivel de texto, y él por detrás va a ser capaz de generar toda esta base vectorial de forma automatizada. Y bueno, aquí está nosotros solamente le metemos la información y Knowledge Base por detrás se encarga de hacer todo el proceso de generación del vector y nosotros solamente nos tenemos que encargar de hacerle la consulta utilizando cualquiera de los modelos que están disponibles. Y bueno, como les comenté al principio de mi sesión, yo fui líder de comunidad, la comunidad me ayudó a crecer, así que los invito a unirse a la comunidad de Argentina, que tienen 4 user groups donde pueden estar, busquen a su user group más cercano, y es súper fácil. Tienen que entrar a la página de Meetup, pueden buscar a AWS Argentina o AWS Argentina, y bueno, esa soy yo. Espero que les haya gustado mi sesión, un poco, porque tuvimos problemas al principio, y aquí estoy para responder sus preguntas. Dame cuántas preguntas. ¿Ah? ¿Bien?
Ahora lo que vamos a hacer, ellos se van a quedar al costado para responder las preguntas, porque tenemos que preparar ¿Yo también? Sí, así aparece en este streaming. Tenemos que preparar para la próxima charla, así que ellos se van a quedar acá, pero queremos esperar, estamos despasados a que Mati termine para que puedan aplaudir. Muchas gracias, chicos. Otro aplauso.
Bueno, gracias.
Ya actualizamos la agenda de la página. El track de demo va a arrancar un ratito antes.
Y bueno, o sea, me pueden preguntar lo que quieran. No correrlos todos los eventos nuevos, pero ahí está la información para ustedes, para que la usen. Lo importante es la parte